Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today I have some subscriber submissions to share with you. Before we get into these encounters, though, a couple links I'd like to share. As you know, I rely on my Patreon, my PayPal, and my merch store to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Those links are in the description below. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1, 2, and 3, the audiobook version. They were written by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeffrey Nadolny. They're available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes. The links to those books are in the description as well. Now, everyone, I've taken enough of your time. Let's get on with today's upload. Shall we? Today I'm going to share with you some subscriber submissions. After I narrate them, I am going to invite them to come back onto the channel, and share their encounters in their own words. Also, I am going to be hopefully interviewing a female subscriber from Louisiana. Apparently she's got some pretty terrifying encounters to share with us. I'm looking forward to that as well. So let's just, enough of me jibber-jabbering. Let's get on with the encounters. Today's first encounter. I've been a member of your channel for about 4 or 5 months, and I enjoy the information you share. This encounter occurred in Colorado Springs near Peterson Air Force Base many years ago. At the time, we lived in Fountain, Colorado, just south of Fort Carson Army Base. Early one evening, I was driving my daughter to the northern part of Colorado Springs so she could attend her acting and modeling class. While driving on Mark Schiffel Road near the Air Force Base, we came to a cluster of trees and brush and noticed the back of an extremely large animal. My daughter said, "Daddy, look at the bear." I told her that's too large to be a bear. The closer we got to this animal, we saw how wide its shoulders were, and its head was bent over like it was eating or trying to hide. The fur was blackish in color with a bit of silver. My daughter and I looked at each other and looked at the animal again, and it was gone. We have no idea what we saw. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. Well, that's our story. On another note, my cousin, who lives near Eagle, Colorado, stated to me that he has had a Dogman encounter as well. Now I'm going to invite this subscriber onto the channel, and possibly his cousin may be willing to share his encounters as well. Or if not, maybe this subscriber can get permission to share his cousins with us. On to the next encounter. Today's second encounter. This happened midsummer in Versailles, Missouri. Approximately 2009, I was outside with my then husband while he was smoking a cigarette. It was about 11:30 p.m. and it seemed like any other night. The next thing I know, he yells, "Big black dog," and pushes me down the stairs. I looked to my right through my backyard that had a detached 3-car garage with a sidewalk that led to it, and all I could see was this huge black shadow type thing that sounded like a horse with claws. My then husband had already locked himself inside, leaving me out all alone. The huge shadow figure that sounded like a horse with claws was coming up on me fast, but I literally had nowhere to go. It blew past me so fast that I fell to the ground on my butt. I stood up as quick as I could and ran to the end of my driveway, looked both ways down the street and saw nothing. I was terrified, and at the time, I had never heard of a Dogman. I can still hear the sounds of those claws on the sidewalk making its way towards me. Whatever it was, it didn't growl or snarl or make any sound other than what I described as horse with claws, and it was fast. I now know what a Dogman is, and I am certain that's what I faced that night. No offense, but you did the smart thing by saying he's the now ex-husband. What kind of dude leaves his wife outside while I mean, come on. This poor woman. She's on crow. Ugh. Maybe karma will come back around and the Dogman will bite him in the ass. Anyway, moving on. Today's third encounter. Hey Jeff, just a short story I've kept to myself since the incident happened back in April of '89. I was visiting my relatives outside of Nevada City, California. We were there for a cousin's wedding. I had flown down the day before and met with many relatives and was enjoying the festivities. The property was up off of 2 logging roads that intersected a corner lot. The area was all timber and brush. This area was the heart of gold mining industry in the 1850s. Anyhow, the following morning I got up and made my way to the kitchen to make some coffee for us early risers. And soon breakfast was over. Everyone was awake, doing chores for the wedding, which was going to be performed in this huge lawn. Tables were all set up, seats were positioned, etc. By 1 p.m. it had quieted down, so I decided to head out for a 7-mile run. Putting my running shoes on, and off I went. About a mile from the house on the left side of the road was a driveway parallel to the logging road that dipped down to a flat piece of ground. And at the other end it rose back up to meet the road. On the property was a trailer, a mobile home. They had a largest German Shepherd I had ever seen, well over 125 pounds and tall. The Shepherd was on a cable runner, I'm guessing, a 1/4 inch in diameter. Needless to say, I was not confident in the cable holding this huge dog from breaking loose and chasing me. 20 steps later, I'm past the other end and concentrating on my pace. Right where the old Chinese encampment was, my turnaround almost 3 miles away from my cousin's house. I turned and picked up my pace. I was really feeling good at this point. About 1/8 of a mile away from the driveway with the Shepherd, I could hear the dog going off. I'm thinking he possibly can't be hearing my footsteps yet. So I moved to the opposite side of the road. On my left, the grade went down from the road to the brush and was about 30 feet higher than me. Now, I'm right at the entrance of the driveway and the dog's not looking at me or barking at me. At that, I turned around to see what the Shepherd was barking at. I looked over my left shoulder and there was the back end of this animal. I caught it just as it crested the 30-foot embankment and only saw it from the mid-body to the tip of its tail. At first I thought it was a mountain lion, but after I thought for a second, it was on 2 legs and bipedal. It was 2-toned gray and the most muscular animal I'd ever seen. I've seen lions, I've seen tigers, and this was way more muscular. I can't tell you for sure what it was. My senses took hold at this point, and I can assure you, I broke the world record running that last mile to my cousin's house. I laugh about it now, but my fear factor at that point was the highest I've ever felt. I've gone over that scene in my mind over the years, trying to rationalize what I saw. Had it not gotten up on its hind legs, I'd have just thought it was a mountain lion. And, by the way, after thinking about it, that Shepherd probably saved my life, perhaps distracting whatever it was. I did go back there the following day to look for tracks, and only one I could find was part of a paw print that had been covered over by the logging truck and trailer. I looked as well right where it was cresting the grade and found nothing. Keep up the good work. Today's 4th subscriber submission. I love your YouTube channel, Dogman Encounters. Here's a story you're free to use. Here's a little nugget of story that might support the idea of Dogman in Kentucky. I've lived in Warren County, Bowling Green, Kentucky for over a decade. A friend, neighbor, coworker was having a really hard time with exceptionally large packs of coyotes disseminating on his livestock on his farm. They were implemented by the government to lower the overpopulation of white-tailed deer, the idiots, and the coyote population was out of control. At the time, I believe it was like $27 a coyote pelt they were paying. and we set up near dawn or near dusk several times to rid his land of several packs he believed of coyotes. One evening, I was around 400 yards with an extremely accurate 5.56 rifle and running a 10-40-50 millimeter optic. A substantial pack of coyotes emerged from the tree line to feed on a goat they had mortally wounded the previous evening. We head out for bait. It was getting darker every few minutes, and visibility was getting worse through the optic because of it. Right before the coyotes were able to get to the bait, they all froze. I'd say there were between 6 to 8 of them, if my memory serves me correctly, and their ears went up, and they were looking at something in the woods. They stared for about 3 seconds and then completely abandoned the bait and ran parallel to the tree line. And when I say quickly, I mean a full-on run until they were out of sight. I'd follow their run with my rifle looking through the optic, but quickly returned to the point of aim to the bait, as I didn't want to wound one and have it suffer from a badly placed shot. What I saw next was a very large head of a coal-black shepherd dog looking towards our direction and panning back and forth between the direction of the coyotes ran. It was looking from behind the tree line only about 2 yards into the thicket over the rise in the earth. I describe a little hump or hill from my perspective. When it looked our direction, something was giving me the feeling that laying in the grass out here about 75 to 100 yards from the truck was not a good place to be. It bordered on the sensation of you get with fight or flight response. We chose flight and calmly walked back to the truck with our rifles on safety, looking back every couple of seconds to see if it was going to emerge from the tree line. The next time we went out, I walked over to the area where we had left the dead goat and the carcass was fed on. The hind quarters looked like they were ripped from the animal, and there was no sign of them. The animal's belly was also torn open and its entrails were pulled out onto the ground in one direction, which was odd for a pack of coyote all feeding on it, for them not to be in multiple directions looking back on it. It's when I went into the tree line about where the dog was hunkered down that I had a spooky, unexplainable realization. On the other side of the dirt mine was a deep pit, I'd say about 4 feet below ground level in a circular shape. In order for that animal to look over the mound, it had to be in the pit, which would place its head well below the top of the hill to look over the hill from the bottom of the pit. It'd have to have been about 2 feet taller standing upright. I'm 6 foot. You do the math. I'm not sure what I saw was a German Shepherd at all now. Not unless the German Shepherd is 8 feet tall, my friend. Definitely not. And I want to thank all the subscribers who sent in their encounters. I will be emailing you guys, hopefully. You guys can come on the show and share what you guys experienced in your own words. Moving on with more encounters. Today's 5th encounter. I was driving through a narrow road at around 2 in the morning. This was after I finished a late shift. I work at the hospital and a car crash had happened, and the person was in need of surgery. Alright, back to the road. This road was surrounded by trees, and I was used to hearing crickets by this time, but it was extremely quiet. My immediate thought was predator or creature because I love spooky stories, but I told myself to stop being ridiculous as I was just scaring myself. All of a sudden a terrible smell hit me, and I closed all of the windows to try to help with the smell of what was before me. At this point, all I could think of was definitely some sort of creature, but I tried to make sense of it and accepted that it was probably a deer or a moose that had died, creating the odor. The next part happens fast, very fast, so be ready. As I was going down the road, a hunched wolf was sitting right in front of my headlights. My heart skipped 5 beats, then I remembered all of the stories I have read. One of my favorites was from Entropic Society, and I knew this was not a wolf because it was huge. Its legs looked like they had been smashed by boulders and reattached. Its head snapped to me on one side, and its head was tilted to the right. The thing that made me know is when it stared into my soul as it stood up 8 feet tall, its yellow eyes and its human hand slowly crept toward me. I drove right into that thing and knocked it down, barely gave me enough time to go through that tiny gap that giant monster left. As I made it through the gap, my winged mirror collapsed because of how narrow it was. Okay, this bit makes me tremble as I write it down. It started to run faster than my car. I was going full throttle from ramming into this creature. I was so close to the city I could see the streetlights and a few drunkies beside the trash cans. At the last moment, it gripped onto the back of my car with its nails penetrating my roof of the ceiling. Now I was just leaving the forest when it jumped off and stared at me through my mirror inside of the car. I made it home and just didn't speak to my brother or sister and went to sleep. The next morning, I told my brother, who guaranteed I saw some sort of creature, possibly a skinwalker or a dogman. This happened 4 months ago, and I now take a route which adds 20 minutes to my drive, but it's better than that cursed road. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed today's upload. Like I said, I am going to reach out to everybody who submitted a subscriber story and hopefully have them come on and share. I'm looking forward to interviewing the woman from Louisiana. That's going to be exciting. And with that, I want to bid y'all farewell and thank you for spending time with me on the channel today. And with that, see ya!